right, guys.
All right, hello everybody. This is the On Point Politics Tester Debate. I am the moderator, Red Tide Politics, along with Gold Crown Politics. Say hello, Gold Crown Politics.
Hey guys, all right, we'll start this out. I will pose the first question
Hold on,
to
wait. Before we do that, let me send the. Hold on, sorry. Let me send the debate post the pre-debate exit poll before we start.
Okay,
Hold on.
so
I'm
I'm going
taking
to
a
explain the. Can I explain the questions really quick? I
yeah
mean
the rules.
rules.
Yes, go ahead and
Okay,
do that.
so the rules are very simple. Each candidate has around 45 seconds to 30 seconds to prepare questions if needed, or they can use that time towards their question or the rebuttal that they have. Each candidate has 2 minutes to answer the question that they have and a 1 minute rebuttal. Um, each candidate may or may not have to mute their mic if they want to, and this is going to be a more it's not going to be a formal debate. It is going to be a very simple debate where we're just going to be questioning each other on questions that we have prepared or whatever is needed. If you want to add anything, Gold Crown, go ahead.
No, I think we can get right into it. All
Okay.
right, so on point, I will pose the first question to you. So I would like to ask you for an overview just of your general election map forecast. What do you kind of have for the election right now?
So as of right now, as you guys know, people watching the channel, I currently have 347 electoral college votes for Donald Trump against incumbent President Joe Biden at 191. We have the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada, all over 5-point victories. Minnesota, New Mexico, Virginia, New Hampshire, and Maine at large are all under 5-point victories due to the large national shift that we are seeing. Just to give you guys a little bit of an overview, based on the national poll that I conducted with SoCal Research, Donald Trump has gained 3 points in the head-to-head since our last poll, and he is currently up 6 points nationally. Kamala Harris, Donald Trump beats her by 8. And when we go down here and we actually see the 2020 sample, we ask voters who they voted for in the previous election. We see Biden actually leads by 5, which is a 1-point overestimation of the sample. And we see that Joe Biden, if you were to kind of shift that to adjust for a D+4 national environment, that would produce actually an R+7 environment. And that doesn't even factor in third-party candidates. So anywhere from a 7 to 10-point victory in the popular vote is within range of what could actually happen. And my model, which does not account for any pre-select polling bias, so no polling errors are plugged into the model, and this model's been tested all the way back to 2004 and has produced semi-accurate results, anywhere from 80 to 95% accuracy in the Electoral College, currently shows Donald Trump leading the national popular vote by 9.2% when you average out, or when you calculate all of the margins based off of all the state projections that I have as of right now. So that's kind of essentially what I have. Maine at large in New Hampshire could honestly go either way at this point. They're both tilt margins. Virginia, New Mexico, Minnesota, Colorado, Illinois, New Jersey, those are kind of the lean states that I have. Honestly, they're kind of still toss-ups. Those could really go either way because, again, this model's never really been 100% tested, but I feel sort of confident in those forecasts as of right now. And anything above 5-point victories for either candidate, essentially, I'm very confident they're going to go either way at this point. So...
Okay, thank you. On Point Tester, you have your 2 minutes.
To rebut?
Or no, sorry, 1 minute to respond.
Okay. Okay. I think it's deeply flawed of a predictor to use his own polls for it. And as we have seen, this poll is a large outlier nationally. In fact, RCP only has Trump up by 3. Finally, I think we are drastically underestimating the amount of support that Biden will get based on being an incumbent. We have seen that in most elections in modern history, in fact, in 2004, 2012, and 2020, the incumbent has been significantly underestimated in the polling. Finally, On Point refuses to account for the fact that most of these undecideds are Democratic leaning and will more than likely break Democrat before the election comes. So ultimately, I think his forecast is fundamentally flawed. my forecast is more level-headed at Trump at 312, though it does allow for some improvement on Trump's part. But to say that Trump is more likely to win 347 electoral votes than not is to take a very minute probability and pretend it is the most likely option.
Okay. On point, would you like to respond to him?
Okay, well, I'm actually going to respond to him very quickly. If you want to go ahead and say that we can use the aggregates, that's fine. Right now, Donald Trump leads in the 538 aggregate by about, I believe it's 3.1%, and he leads by 3.7%. It's actually 3.2 on 538, and he leads by 3.7 in the national aggregate. And what we've noticed in the past two cycles is that the former president has been underestimated both times. And yes, it's true that incumbents tend to be underestimated in polling data. A lot of those have tended to be the more quote-unquote populist candidate compared to the other. Obama compared to Romney and McCain Obama was objectively the populist candidate, and so is Donald Trump compared to Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. And right now, if you actually look at the New York Times sample, even they have Trump up by about 6 points in a five-way race, and their Biden sample for 2020 is also D+4. So that indicates a 10-point shift to the right. So yes, states like Virginia, New Hampshire, Minnesota are going to trend to the left compared to the right of the nation, but to say they're not at least in toss-up category is kind of, a big mistake, or at least that they're in favor of Trump. And even a state like Virginia, right now, Donald Trump leads the Virginia aggregate, and he's been underestimated here both times as well. So that's also something to take into account here. Not in one poll, in multiple polls in the RCP aggregate, Donald Trump is now leading there. So that is a big sign. And that doesn't even account for a polling bias error or third-party candidates, which Emerson College actually has Donald Trump winning by 5 points in a poll in Virginia with all the third-party candidates added up. Now, do I think that would happen? Absolutely not. I think Donald Trump with third parties probably ends up winning by 1 to 2 points in Virginia, and I do expect it to trend to the left of the nation. But to say that he's not even the favorite in Minnesota and Virginia as of right now is pretty disingenuous. And Donald Trump was underestimated by about 3 points in the aggregate in RCP and about 4 to 5 points in the 538 aggregate. So anywhere from a 6 to 9 point victory, 6 to 8 points, give or take, based on those aggregates is within realm of possibility as of right now, based on historical polling errors.
Okay. Thank you, On Point. I'm gonna go on to my first question. For On Point, why do you believe that many of the states flipped for President Biden in 2020 election? Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan specifically. Will be likely this year? Basically asking, why will all these Rust Belt states that you have as likely states in your prediction, why do you believe that they will go for likely? Especially, this can also be asked for North Carolina.
Okay, the reason why I have all these very competitive states flipping to the former president by very easy margins is very simple. We could actually look at the aggregates right now. I mean, right now, Arizona in the five-way aggregate, he leads by 7.2%. Georgia, I believe the aggregates are pretty similar to each other, but he leads by 4 there. And Michigan right now, Donald Trump leads by 1.7, and the polling error there tends to be, off by 2 to 4 points depending on the poll. And if you look at Nevada, he's leading by a likely margin. He's leading by a likely margin in North Carolina. And in Pennsylvania, he leads by 4.5 there. And in Wisconsin, the polling errors are anywhere from 6 to 7 points in, the past 2 cycles. And believe it or not, on RCP, the exact same error, underestimating Trump twice, has actually occurred as of right now. So if you were to apply the same exact error that's happened twice, you would get a 9.3 percentage point victory in the state of Wisconsin. Now, are the exact errors going to occur? Not necessarily, but the fact that Trump is leading in most of these states by a decent amount, or at least over 5 points, is a big indicator. And even just to go off basic shifts, Biden won the last election by 4.5 points. Even if testers, basically assumed national environment, which would be Trump +3, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, all those states would be shifting 7 points to the right. That would put Wisconsin in the likely margin. Georgia would be a 7-point victory. Arizona would be a 7-point win. Nevada would be almost 5. Michigan would essentially be a 3-point win. Pennsylvania would actually be in the likely category, and so would North Carolina. So even just based off of Tester's own assumed national aggregate being +3 at the end of the day, if you were to just do a raw average shift, Donald Trump is already up in all of these states except Michigan by a likely margin, and I expect the Rust Belt to trend to the right. I expect the Sun Belt to kind of trend to the left, but my national shift is so much greater than most years past, or even most experts claim is going to be the case, that he's still going to cross the 5-point margins in Arizona and Georgia. And in Nevada, that state's going to be trending to the right by a pretty big amount. I mean, the New York Times / Siena College poll there from May had Trump up there by 14. And yes, they did oversample Republicans, but not enough to bring it under 5 points. If you adjust for the sample, which I think it was a tied Nevada sample, it puts Trump at like +12 in the state. And look what we have right here. My model currently has the state of Nevada at a 14-point victory, and the poll from May was before the assassination attempt, before any of these, the convention happened, before the VP debate happened. So clearly, there is a bigger shift going on right now than people are seeming to realize.
Okay, thank you. Tester, go ahead. You have your minute.
Okay, so On Point bases much of his prediction on polls, which I think is very nonsensical. We have seen that polls are very reactionary to things that happen. A lot of people will announce their support for Trump after the debate and then eventually switch back. Also, one of the fundamental things that he misunderstands is that the polling will more than likely get better for Biden before the election, and more than likely Biden will either be slightly underestimated or run even with the polling. Now, why? 2016, both candidates were unpopular, so you wouldn't expect the polls to favor one, but the polling underestimated Trump because a lot of undecideds broke for him in the last few days. 2020, Biden was extremely popular. Trump was not, but a lot of people voted for Trump because he was the incumbent and because they remembered the economy. And two, they were ashamed to admit that they voted for Trump because the popular media narrative was that Trump was bad and Biden was good. This time, that's not happening. So we cannot count on Biden being overestimated in the polls, which is one of the things On Point does. Since him having the popular vote as something Trump +6, I think, is completely nonsensical, because no aggregate shows Trump +6. Very, very few polls, including Rasmussen, which has historically overestimated Republicans by a lot, show the popular vote as Trump +6. Now we have to count on undecideds breaking for Biden because, one, historically undecideds have broke for the president, especially in the last few days or months of the election. And second of all, because it is very, very hard for a voter to admit that they support Biden in this environment. The media is attacking Biden. People on social media are attacking Biden. Everyone sees that Biden is unpopular. I don't think that Biden will win, but to say that Trump will win in a landslide is simply illogical because there are very few signs pointing towards it. On Point Politics cherry picks this to feed his audience, which wants Trump to win. Now, I think that there's a chance. I will admit that, but all signs show to Biden getting back his lead, or at least narrowing the election in the coming months of this campaign.
Okay, thank you, Tester. Gold Crown, you may ask your question.
Yeah, okay, I have a question for Tester. So I would like to understand what you kind of think about third-party candidates in this election cycle. My understanding is that you currently have a +3 Trump national environment, and that seems to line up with the head-to-head national polls in RCP. Currently, Trump is up by 3 points in the head-to-head for RCP. But if you look at the 5-way poll, so if you include other third-party candidates like RFK Jr., like Cornel West and Jill Stein, his lead seems to expand. And this is across multiple different sites. You can look at RCP, you can look at 538, you can look at The Hill. Also, Trump's lead seems to expand with third-party candidates. I'm kind of wondering what your take on third-party candidates will be. What kind of impact do you see them having on the election Do you see it as significant, as insignificant? And what candidate do you think third parties will benefit the most?
So we've seen historically that third parties will be overestimated. Gary Johnson was supposed to get around 10% of the popular vote. If not slightly less than that, he ended up getting around 3.3%. So these third parties that are expected to get around 10 to 15% of the popular vote in most polling, I think that's wrong. And I do think that third parties will take somewhat evenly, if not slightly more from Biden. I think Kennedy will take more from Trump just because there are enough leftist third parties to take from Biden. But I think that, especially since people are much more reactionary in polling, that the amount of support that third parties are getting is being overestimated. And I think basing your model on third parties getting a large percent of the vote and taking a large percent of the vote from the president. Sorry, I'm stuttering a lot. Basing your model on taking a lot of votes from the president is pretty illogical.
Okay.
So ultimately, I think that can I speak?
Yeah.
I think that third parties will take a small amount of votes from Biden, but I think ultimately their impact will be somewhat insignificant.
On point, would you like to respond?
Okay, well, actually, what's pretty interesting is, number one, Rasmussen is not a Republican outlier. They were actually deemed the second most accurate forecaster in terms of polling in 2020 and 2016. They actually had a D+4 national environment in their final poll in 2016, and then in 2020 they actually ended up getting a D+5 sample. So their polling actually hasn't been that off in terms of the national environment. And second of all, here, let's pull up the five-way aggregate. He claims that RFK is going to take more votes away from Trump. This does not seem to be the case, as Biden recovered in the polling data from the beginning of 2023 until right before the conviction trial, or at least right before the April trial for Trump. The more that Biden recovered, the more Kennedy actually went down in the polling aggregates. If you look, the second Trump started gaining from the conviction, Biden started going down, but Kennedy actually started going up as well, and he kind of maintained his support while Biden had maintained his support in the high 30s. Then, right around the conviction, we saw Biden kind of boost up a little bit and Kennedy started going down in polling. But right after the presidential debate, Kennedy completely shot up from 7% all the way to 10% on July 4th. Biden at just 38%, and we've seen a little bit of a dead cat bounce, but we see Kennedy is polling at 8.5 points. So every single time that Biden dips in the polling data, Kennedy goes up in the polling data. So to indicate that Trump is going to get more votes taken away from Kennedy than Biden is definitely a big misconception by most political analysts. And Stein and West have been polling pretty consistently. They're actually polling at one of the highest points. Either one of them have polled that at some point during the entire campaign, and they all collectively get over 10% in the aggregate. And they haven't even included Oliver into the aggregate, which is actually the most liberal candidate in the entire roster. And so if you're gonna have, let's say, okay, that is true, third parties tend to get overestimated, but if they're all adding up to about 13 or 14%, you could say they maybe get like 7 or 8%. And that is well enough to sway an election. Even when you go to like 2000 or 1996, Ross Perot got 8% of the national popular vote, with the independent getting 1.7%. And that definitely took votes away from Clinton. And we even see 1992, Reform got about 19%. That obviously hurt H.W. Bush. But even to go off of your point with the whole Biden undecideds thing, yes, right now, even in our polling, it does show some undecideds are leaning towards Biden as of right now. And you're saying, oh, that Trump is not going to be overestimated in the polling data. Well, what's very interesting, I don't know, can I go ahead and rebut, like get another minute, or not really?
Goldcron, up to you.
I'd be fine with that.
Let's give him like just a bit more.
30 seconds.
Okay, so there is a national popular vote share correlation with the approval rating. So, for example, Bush in 2004 had a 49.5% approval rating. He ended up getting 50.7% of the national popular vote. In 2004, Barack Obama had a 61% favorable. He ended up getting like 52%, but McCain had like 54%. He got 47, but 61 to 45 is literally, or 61 to 54 is a 7-point difference, and Obama won the popular vote by 7. 2012, Obama had a 50% approval rating. Obama got 51. Trump in 2020 ended up getting 46% approval rating. He ended up getting 47% of the national popular vote. Meanwhile, Clinton on election day had, or H.W. Bush actually had a 54% approval rating on election day, but ended up getting 37% because Ross Perot took votes. And the same thing happened to Clinton. His approval rating was 54%. He ended up getting 49 because third parties took votes. So in both elections where the incumbents had a decent amount of third parties, regardless whether it was 8%, which is probably what RFK and the others will combine for, and what Ross Perot had, you still see the incumbent underperforms by a decent amount. And right now, Trump on RCP leads Biden by 3 points. And when you factor in third-party candidates, that could be a 5 to 6 point popular vote victory. And even civics.com, which I actually use better because this tends to have a higher sample size. You see Donald Trump gets, almost 400,000 respondents in his favorability rating. Biden has 500,000 respondents. You see Biden in the entire nation as a whole is at 36%, and Trump is actually at 42% as of right now. So it's like, clearly, when you look at favorability ratings and see how well they correlate to actual election results in the past 20 years or so, Donald Trump clearly is the favorite on that metric. So to say he gets underestimated in polling data, I mean, if he's leading by 10, then you can make the case maybe he gets underestimated. But right now, I don't see a conceivable way that he gets underestimated in the polling data.
Okay.
Can I respond?
You can, since he took a little bit more than 30 seconds, you can use that for your time, in your rebuttal. So on point, this is a question for you. Why do you believe that the polls are going to underestimate Trump again, while they have underestimated him twice already? Polls seem to show him winning more than a Republican has in the past in 24 years. It seems like the polls would rather overestimate him. So why do you believe that your sample that you have is actually going to underestimate Trump more than overestimate him?
Okay, well, the reason why I believe that's going to be the case is because, number one, polling hasn't necessarily been fixed to an extent. Even when we polled Wisconsin, our rural voter situation is still exactly the same as the rest of the polling aggregates. We literally had to weigh the poll a bunch just to be able to get it to be accurate to a 2020 sample, because barely any rural voters contacted us. And on top of that, that is a main demographic that Trump tends to do better with as well. And states like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania have large groups of these voters. And on top of that, New York Times / Siena College, for example, they tend to have the most accurate samples when it comes to their 2020 sample. And they're the only other pollster besides us that goes back to 2020. And we actually have Donald Trump, or they actually have Biden ahead. Usually, I believe it's like 4 to 6 points in their 2020 samples, and their average of polling has Trump ahead by about 5. That's like a 12-point shift to the right. So if you were to shift 4.5 D plus 4.5, 12 points, that gives you like an 8.5 popular vote victory. And that's using the third-party candidate aggregates as well. And even to look at their latest state polling, if we go to Virginia, for example, their aggregate or their polling in Virginia literally has Joe Biden only winning the state by 2 with third parties. But if you actually go to their 2020 sample, we actually see that Joe Biden leads it by 14 percentage points, and Joe Biden only won that state by 10 points. That indicates that they actually oversampled Democrats here. So if you were to apply that shift, you would actually end up getting a Trump +2 sample, which so happens to align with my election model, with Trump winning it by around 2.6%. And my polling aggregates in this model don't really affect affect the results too much. Like, I could just change and have Virginia at D plus 10, and Trump still wins the state by like a point and a half. Most of the polling comes in with the demographic, or most of the results are affected by the demographic model, the difference in the approval ratings, Biden's approval rating going from 2008 to 2020 and finding that average shifts, and looking at the difference in approval rating. And so, yes, it's not guaranteed it goes to Trump, but definitely to say it's basically a toss-up at this point would be the fair categorization. And I would argue that Trump is even the favorite, considering that Trump on average is shifting. Even comparing the RCP aggregate, Biden was up by 7.2% in the RCP aggregate. Now Trump's up by 3.7 in the five-way race. That's over a 10-point shift, which is right around the margin in Virginia, indicating that the state could be either tilt blue to R, but I think it would indicate more of a tilt R categorization. And if Virginia is tied in the aggregate and underestimates Donald Trump, there's no way we can actually see Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada be underestimated for Trump, because the Rust Belt's going to continue to trend to the right like it has the past 12 years. And the Sun Belt, despite trending, to the left, I don't think it's going to trend to the left 4 to 6 points in Arizona and Georgia. I currently have them trending like 2 to 3 points to the left of the nation, or like they're going to trend 2 points to the left in this cycle. You saw in Arizona 6 points to the right of the nation in 2016. In Georgia, it was 7 points. We see here it was 4 points in 2020 for Arizona. Here it's 4.2 for Georgia as well. And in 2012, it was 13 points for Romney to the right of the nation and 11 points. So each cycle, they both shifted 4 points to the left in 2016 in terms of their partisan leaning, and then shifted 3 points from 2016 to 2020. So at this point, you could say a 1 to 3 point shift to the left would be reasonable. And look what we have here. If we go to my model, Arizona right now is currently an 11.5 point victory, which seems crazy. But if we look at my model, we see it's a 9 point victory in the popular vote, which would indicate the state voting 2.5 points to the right. So even, let's say I get Arizona wrong by like 5 points. Let's say it ends up being R plus 7 or 8, which is currently what the RCP aggregate has it at right now, which, by the way, the Arizona RCP aggregate polls tend to be pretty spot on. They tend to be pretty close to what actually happens. So even if I get it off by 5 points, I will still be the most accurate forecaster, because no one has it even near where I have it as of right now. So that's kind of my consensus as to why I think Trump is not going to be underestimated in the national aggregates or state aggregates as of right now.
Okay, Tester, you have your... Since On Point went a little bit longer on the last questions, I would say you have around 4 minutes.
Let him get his time. Yeah.
You have around 4 minutes to say whatever you need.
Okay, so once again, I feel like On Point bases too much of his model off of polls. These polls have been shown to be unreliable, and most importantly, they have been shown to underestimate the incumbent, especially when the incumbent is very unpopular. On Point takes these polls at face value, even applies the same biases that we've seen in 2016 and 2020. The simple fact is that in 2016 and 2020, Donald Trump was not challenging an incumbent president. This is one of the biggest traditions we have seen polling 2004, 2012, 2020. That's a much stronger trend than the last two elections, which can be explained away by not challenging an incumbent. Incumbents are always underestimated in polling. Why is this? Because people do not want, at the end of the day, incumbency is one of the most powerful factors in elections, and people do not want to admit that. Especially when the incumbent is unpopular, it's much, much easier to say that you are undecided or that you are voting for the challenger than to say that you are voting for the incumbent. We see this in polling. Donald Trump has a large lead. By the way, not even as large as On Point says. Like, he's using Rasmussen and saying it's accurate in 2016 and 2020 because of the polling bias. There was no polling bias in 2020, and just like I'm saying here, Rasmussen stuck out like a sore thumb. Rasmussen embarrassed themselves in 2022 because there was no polling bias. In fact, Democrats were underestimated. But most importantly, incumbents are underestimated. And we can't just write that off this time because Biden is running against Trump and Trump is underestimated. Like, On Point brings up this populism thing, which I never really got this argument since it's so subjective. Like, can you call George W. Bush a populist? Like, I know you can't call Kerry a populist, but can you call him a populist? Like, no, he's just a generic neocon Republican. Yet he was underestimated. So you can't do that. And Donald Trump, yes, he's a populist, but that can mean anything. Donald Trump is populist has no definition. Like, everyone disagrees on it. Like, the term originated like hundreds of years ago. Like, I think it was 1892, if I'm correct. Populist originated there. Like, ever since then, it's meant nothing as a term. Like, so to base your entire model, to base your entire prediction on this term, like, I can say that Biden's a populist because, oh, in 2020, or not 2020, in 2012, Obama was a populist and Biden brought back the Obama nostalgia. Like, that means nothing. To say that Trump is a populist just because, oh, he did good in the Rust Belt for a Republican, like, that means nothing. Like, non-populists have been elected governors in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan. Non-populists have been underestimated in polls. Like, to base your prediction on that is just insane. Now, as to trends, I do not think the Rust Belt trends Republican this election. Why? On Point Politics acknowledges this in his forecast, where he has New York, California shifting heavily Republican. These states are where Trump's national shift comes from, not from Wisconsin, not from Minnesota, not from Ohio. It's from safe Republican states like Florida, like even Texas, and from safe Democrat states like California and New York. That is where Trump is improving his popular vote. So to take the national popular vote and to decide to apply that uniformly would be completely idiotic. We even saw this in 2020. People don't know this, but Michigan trended Democrat. It shifted Democrat, but it trended Democrat too. So, like, to say that somehow now states like Michigan are going to trend Republican, even though they trended Democrat in 2020, and there's going to be much more shifts Republican out of New York, California, even Washington. Like, there's some polling there comes out that has it close. Like, there could be a large shift there for Trump. So, first, On Point Politics is wrong because, one, he significantly overestimates Donald Trump's support. I do, like, we've seen this. The undecideds will more than likely break for Biden. Second of all, Biden will not be overestimated in these polls by 2020 margin. Second of all, his forecast is wrong because it assumes that the Rust Belt will trend Republican, which it simply will not, especially in this election. And third of all, he's wrong. Actually, I didn't bring this point up, but he brings up the Arizona aggregate. This doesn't really make too much sense. A lot of these Arizona polls are flawed. Like, first of all, they showed Kari Lake winning, which, if you want to talk about populism, Kari Lake, definitely a populist, definitely very Trumpian. If you want to say that, oh, we should take these polls at face value, why would we take them at face value when, Kari Lake was significantly overestimated in the polls? Here's what I will say. Polling will confirm the pollsters' narrative. If the narrative is that Biden's going to win every state, he's going to win in a landslide, polling will reflect that. But right now, the narrative, especially by the media, I don't want to be one of those conspiracy theorists who says the media is biased against Biden, but, like, the media does not like Biden. It's a good story because a lot of people do not like Biden, so it's a very good story to say that Biden's going to lose in a landslide. So the media is saying that, and a lot of these pollsters, like Rasmussen, Emerson, like these pollsters are just like, imagine you're a pollster and you get a result that completely conflicts what everyone says. Like, then you're going to do the weighing, then you're going to do all that stuff to try and fix that result. But, like, first of all, assuming that turnout will be the same, it will not. Like, we cannot assume that turnout will be 2020 levels. So, like, when you get a result that says, oh, more Biden voters are going to turn out, like, then you're just going to ignore that. And second of all, like, the specific people, like sorry, I can't speak. The specific demographics that they pick for these polls, like, all you're doing is guessing, and, like, they're going to guess wrong because the narrative is that a lot of minorities aren't going to turn out. Because, like, what happened? We saw a few polls with this, and then it keeps snowballing. Like, people just want to conform to this media narrative, like this widespread narrative that Trump is going to win in a landslide. So like the base your prediction solely based on those polls. And I know you have the model. I know
Sorry.
you have the model, but like even that, like you need to have like popular vote to base your prediction solely on these polls, which we have seen are wrong, which we have seen conform to this idea that like 2020, oh, Biden's gonna win in a landslide, Trump's done. Like 2024, it's flipped. Biden is the incumbent. People think that Trump will win. A lot of the media does want Trump to win because it helps them carry a story. So to base it solely on those polls is just counterfactual. Thank you.
Can I rebut that?
Really quickly.
Okay, first of all, I just went on election shuffler and I put my margins for California, Texas, Florida, and New York in, and the national environment is still tied, and it does not match your R+3 national environment. So first of all, clearly even those big shifts in those states to match my margins wouldn't even be enough to get the popular vote to where you have it. Second of all, New York, you have it, the national environment R+3, but yet your environment or your margin in New York is under 10 points. That is ridiculous. That would indicate that you have New York trending to the right by like 11 points because New York voted 18 points to the left of the nation. In order for New York to be under 10 points in an R+3 national environment would basically have to be the state basically voting within 13 points to the left of the nation. So I don't even think New York's going to trend 5 points to the right at all. I just think the national environment's going to shift right. And second of all, for the midterms, those electorates are vastly different. And what's happened the past 12 years is that college-educated voters used to be more Republican, and that's the demographic that tends to turn out during midterms because those tend to be the voters that are more excited about electoral politics. That's usually how it works. And so now that shift has started to go Democrat, that's why you saw Democrats overperform. And yes, a lot of people did overestimate Republicans in the 2022 midterms, state polling wise, but national polling during midterms has actually been pretty decent. Even in 2022, the national aggregate actually only underestimated Republicans by 0.3. We just assumed that Republicans were going to win by 6 or 7. If I would have gone back and realized that midterms do not equal presidential elections, we could have been able to deduce that. And also during midterms, you have different sets of candidates in all of these different states, and not all 50 states are on a ballot in the Senate elections. So to compare the midterms or say, oh, Trump's going to be underestimated because incumbent midterms. First of all, Biden is below the 40s. We have not had an incumbent be below 40% in the entire 21st century going into a re-election bid. And the one time where an incumbent was in the mid-20s, his party ended up losing 365 electoral college votes to 173 electoral college votes. So, and all the other candidates are not polling better than Biden either nationally. We have Harris doing worse. Now Harris is doing a little bit better because the media is probably pushing push polls for Harris to get her to get Biden to drop out, because before the debate, every single pollster had Harris doing worse. So to say that Trump is going to be underestimated because of midterms or undecideds or whatever, I think it's just complete nonsense. Especially the fact that my model actually overestimated Biden in 2020. It actually shows Biden winning 334 electoral college votes, which I believe was actually the same standard that 538 had, or something pretty close to that. I know Major Forecast had 334 as their margin. So just FYI. So that's my rebuttal on that.
Okay.
Okay,
Tester.
can I respond?
Let him respond.
Can I respond?
Yeah, I'll let you respond.
Okay.
Just very, very quickly, because
So-
I want to move on to the next point.
On Point Politics brings up statewide polling. I have never used statewide polling. In fact, it is you who use the statewide polling to justify your stuff, especially in Virginia. Because if you use a national popular vote, there is no reason to have Virginia trending to the right, which would be what's needed to flip it. Especially since it was D+4 or D+5 in 2020. You have it, I think, as R+6 popular vote. That would mean Virginia is down the wire, but I'm pretty sure you have it like R+2 or 3. I might be wrong about that.
I have it as R+2 because my national environment is higher than yours.
So that would mean that Virginia trends to the right of the nation. Now, there's no justification for that unless you use statewide polling, which you yourself said that statewide polling was deeply flawed in 2022. There's no reason to say it will not be deeply flawed in 2024. One more thing about Virginia, since I want to wrap up this discussion about Virginia and get to more important things. Virginia polls are usually accurate. Look at 2021. They were almost spot on with Youngkin. Even 2020, you look at RCP, which I use RCP since 538 is much less reliable. RCP, Virginia polling was about spot on. It was within the margin of error. And that was with Trump as an incumbent. Trump, like I've said, this is going to be flipped. More than likely, the Virginia polls are overstating Trump's support because Biden is now the incumbent. Now, another thing, and I'll take this as you conceding the point, you say that the media is making push polls for Harris. So you admit that the media is biased against Biden and wants Harris to be the nominee, which writes off a lot of these polls that you use in your forecast. You use the aggregate. Let me actually pull this up on RCP. You use the aggregate, which shows Trump up by 3. But you admit that the media is pushing polls in favor of Kamala Harris and making it so that the polls are biased against Joe Biden. So, using this aggregate, which first of all, there is no guarantee that Donald Trump will be underestimated by the aggregate. 2, you admit the polls are biased against Biden. And 3, you have Donald Trump
never said that,
outperforming
though.
by more.
I never said that.
You said it yourself. You did say it. You said that the media was pushing polls for Kamala Harris so that she would be the nominee.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
you're
yeah, they're
saying
doing that, but doesn't
they're-
mean they're good. She's definitely going to be underestimated, too, if she were to go against Trump, for sure. They're both going to be underestimated.
So-
Now they're just pushing polls to make Harris look like the better Democrat candidate,
Both candidates
but
would
doesn't
be
mean...
underestimated. Both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris would be underestimated. But
Yeah,
Joe
against
Biden
Trump.
by more. Actually, don't know about Harris. Yeah, you just said that Joe Biden will be underestimated by the polling against Trump. So,
Okay,
all right.
you know.
All right.
Wait,
Goldcrown, I'm pretty
let
sure
me-
you asked the last question, if I'm correct, or am I stupid? Was it me who asked the last question? Did I ask the last question?
I think it was you,
Red
Red Tie.
Tie.
Okay. All right, Goldcrown, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah. Is this one to Tesser?
Whatever you want.
Okay. Yeah. I'll just go. With Tesser. Okay. So my question to you is, what states do you believe that both Trump and Biden should kind of target to sort of maximize their electoral odds of victory? We've obviously seen that both of the candidates have been mostly prioritizing the traditional battleground states, but we've also seen Trump kind of make a concerted effort to sort of expand the electoral map in some deep blue states, such as Minnesota, Virginia, and New Hampshire. Trump has held some rallies in those states, and my understanding is that you currently have all those states as lean Democrat in your forecast, but there have been some very accurate pollsters from 2020 showing Trump up in 2024 in some of these deep blue states. For example, the most accurate New Hampshire pollster back from 2020 has Trump up currently by 2 points in their latest poll with third parties. In Minnesota, Trump is up by 1 in the most, I think it was a recent Emerson poll, and Emerson has been really accurate. So what is your response to some of this polling for Donald Trump being not just competitive, but leading in some of these deep blue states? And do you realistically think that some of them could flip to Trump in this election cycle?
So, first of all, I'll get it out of the way. Emerson, any poll with a Republican up +1 is going to give me PTSD. Before I was Testerisdone, I was Bashirisdone, and I was very, very happy when they released their Cameron +1 poll out of Kentucky. I was not very happy when that poll turned out to overestimate Cameron's support by 6%. So, moving on to this battleground states. Just to say that Donald Trump is targeting these states is not to say that he will win them. Barack Obama targeted North Dakota in 2008. Now, did he think he was going to win North Dakota? Probably not. I think that his campaign would have to be delusional to think that. But
He got
the reason
within 9
targeted North
points.
Dakota was to throw. That's not particularly close. That's to say that Ohio was close in 2022, and that Biden targeting Ohio would be a smart decision, which probably it wouldn't be. But the reason Obama targeted North Dakota in 2008 was to throw the McCain campaign off balance, because now McCain has to shift his energy from making offense in states like Virginia, Ohio. I even saw McCain wanted to target Pennsylvania, which I'll get to later. and now he has to shift that energy, resources, campaigning time into North Dakota, because it would be really embarrassing if he lost North Dakota. I think Trump's doing the same thing, except it's much smarter than that, because now there's a lot of donors in Virginia and Minnesota. Like, before we came out and we said that Donald Trump has a chance in Virginia and Minnesota, where did he discuss this? With donors, because he wants that donor money. Biden did the same thing in Florida. He said he was going to win Florida to get donor money. Now his campaign has completely written it off because, probably going to go for Trump by over 10%, if I'm being honest. But the reason you target these states is to get donors on your side, to force, like Donald Trump is targeting Virginia and Minnesota to force the election to be held in those states. Like to force Biden to campaign in Minnesota and Virginia rather than Wisconsin or Michigan. So I do think it's a smart strategy, but it doesn't mean at all that Trump is going to win a single state. It only means that now he's in a semi-decent position in the battleground. Like, he's still campaigning in Michigan, which is a battleground state, but now he gets to, pin Biden down, pin down his resources, especially with a funding advantage, into these safe states. Now, finally, moving on to these pollsters, I think looking at parties' internals is a good way to look at looking at the parties' internals is a good way to bring this up. New Mexico, one of On Point's most interesting takes. There was a poll from Nella Dominenci that had Biden winning the state. So, I don't really think that poll can underestimate Donald Trump's support. So yeah, I think using these pollsters, like On Point said, a lot of these pollsters will be push polls, and I thank him for making that point, because now, no holds barred, I can talk about push polls, and he really can't insult me because of that. But a lot of these are push polls made to get that donor money, to force Biden to defend these safe blue states, or even like somewhat blue states, like blue-leaning swing states, or like between a swing state and a safe state for Biden. A lot of that, Donald Trump does not think he can win these states, or if he does think he will win these states, he thinks it's a very, very narrow path, and there's nothing like, lean red New Mexico. So, I think a lot of these polls are push polls for the Trump campaign, and also, moving on to the St. Anselm poll, since it'd be a crime for me to not address this. That poll probably isn't the best to use. Another memory of mine from 2022, St. Anselm, I think it was the final poll, had Bulldog up by like 1 or 2. Maggie Hassan won that race by 8%. So I wouldn't really cite that poll if I were On Point. But yeah, that's just my thought. I yield my time.
Okay, can I rebut that?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, that New Hampshire poll, again, I told you, the midterms, not the same thing as presidential years. State polls in midterms tend to be more inaccurate. The national polls those years tend to be more accurate. During election years, yes, both of them are still off, but it tends to be the opposite. The national polls will usually be slightly closer to the real result than what the state polls will be. And so what ends up happening, or it's the state polls tend to be a little bit closer to the actual result than what the national polls are. And New Mexico, that D+1 poll for Biden, yes, it's a Republican internal that had him up by 1, but it was the first poll conducted in New Mexico in a few months, and it was conducted pre-debate, pre-assassination attempt, pre-RNC, and pre-VP pick as well. Hold on. Sorry. So, although, yes, it does have Biden up 1, it was conducted in mid-June before the debate, before pre-assassination attempt, and pre-VP debate, and pre-RNC. And you could argue the VP pick and the RNC are not going to have everlasting effects, but the assassination attempt and the debate definitely had, because Trump gained in multiple state aggregates by a pretty decent amount. And again, I'm not using the state polls to have a huge influence in my predictions in the model. Yes, they mean something. Like if New Hampshire's margin was super close and the polling aggregate just happened to skew it one way, I mean, yeah, it could. But the likeliness of a polling aggregate in my model to change a whole state's result is not necessarily what would happen. The national polls tend to be a better indicator of how states are going to shift, because you could kind of say, okay, on average, every single state's going to shift this much, and based on demographic trends and based on individual states, you could kind of track where they're going to go, and based on historical trends, because even my model tracks the average shift and the average trend from 2008 to 2006 to 2020. So New Mexico, if we look in 2012, voted 6.3 points to the left of the nation. If we look at 2016, it voted 6.1 points to the left of the nation. If we go to 2020, 6.3 points to the left of the nation. So it hasn't really moved that much. But if we look at my forecast, the state as of right now is literally, if we go to it, let's pull it up, 3.6%, and the national environment is a 9.2 percentage point national environment. If I were to calculate that, that's a 13.7 percentage point shift. And if we look at the state of New Mexico in 2020, the margin there was 10.8%. So that would basically indicate that the state is pretty much shifting about half a point Republican in its trending, which based on previous trends the past 12 years wouldn't necessarily be that unreasonable. Again, this is not to be treated as the complete gospel, not that I'm going to get it down to the decimal point, but to say that Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania are under 5 points at this point, I think is pretty silly. And that Trump is not at least the Virginia favorite or the New Mexico favorite or the Minnesota favorite is not even that good. And if you want to see, you mentioned internal polling, great. New Mexico's internal polling for Biden post-debate had him down in New Mexico. Same thing in Virginia, and it's same thing in New Hampshire. And he was actually down there by 1.5 post-debate. Minnesota and Maine at large were the only states he was barely leading by, which maybe the internal polls on their side are picking up that those states are trending to the left more than we realize. Who knows? But either way, New Mexico and Virginia and New Hampshire are all ahead for Trump in Biden's latest internal polling data about a week after the debate. So for you to say that, oh, internal pollings, yeah, they're going to be skewed. Well, if we look at those same internal polls, they're going to be able to have, they have Trump up there. So that's basically my rebuttal.
I'd like to respond again because I think I can make some good points against it. So I'm going to go in reverse. Let me respond. Can I respond?
Yeah. Can you very quickly?
Okay. I'll make it quick. So those internal polls, those were leaked, allegedly. Now, especially since we have heard reports that a lot of Biden staffers are trying to force him out, I have reason to believe that poll was leaked to the media, to the public, in order to generate public pressure from Democrats against Biden. I don't see why that poll would, since campaigns have internal polls and they're not leaked, but the fact that so conveniently when calls are for Biden to step down, that poll gets leaked. I think that's too much of a coincidence. Now, you said you had Trump winning the popular vote by 9, which is interesting because the RCP aggregate, the 5-way aggregate, which you seem to be using, I think you're factoring in third parties a lot, has Trump up by 3.7, which would mean that the aggregate underestimates him by around 5, which I think is a little bit silly, in your own words, a little bit silly. I don't see any reason why the polls will underestimate Trump by more than last time. Finally, you say that your statewide polls don't influence your model. Well, you have a lot of these states bucking their trends, like New Hampshire, what you can see is that New Hampshire is trending heavily Democrat. Now, is that because the New Hampshire loathes incumbents? Yes, but we did see 2022. I really do hate to bring up 2022, but 2022, that college-educated population, which will turn out in 2024, which makes up a large amount of the New Hampshire electorate, did turn out heavily against Republicans. Even Chris Sununu underperformed. Now, finally, you mentioned 2022. You try to rebut me using 2022. The reason I bring up 2022 is because, one, it shows evidence that polls are starting to get more accurate, because we did predict that Republicans would drastically outperform the national popular vote, and they didn't. So it gives some reason to believe that Republicans are starting to do better, or not Republicans, that pollsters are starting to do better in nailing the group of people who will turn out and nailing how they will vote. And second of all, because a lot of these candidates did run Trumpian campaigns. Yes, a lot of candidates who didn't run Trumpian campaigns underperformed, but a lot of these rising stars who tried to portray themselves just like Trump underperformed heavily. So, like, to say that Trump himself will overperform, but all these candidates who used the exact same messaging, we even had rallies with him, will, just set them aside, is completely illogical. Like, I don't see why. Like, actually, I forget when this was mentioned, but you say that New York will, trend 5 points to the right.
No, that's not what I said. I said based on what you have in the national popular vote, you have Trump +3 and you have New York under 10 points. That doesn't even make any sense. That's actually overestimating my own trend of the state of New York.
Yeah, well, I feel like, first of all, I don't even know where I said Trump +3. Might have been an offhand comment.
No, it wasn't an offhand
you've
comment.
seen
It was in your post VP Vance video that you just posted a couple days ago, and you said that your Trump +3 national environment was the environment that you expect is going to happen ahead of time. But that's not what I'm doing. I'm predicting the election as of today, and I know that you said that you think it's dumb to do that.
Okay, so we have a fundamental difference. Now, I don't see how you can get a Trump +9 popular vote predicting the election as of today, since like you like to use these polls a lot. Well, I mean, I can't share my screen since actually no, I can, but it'll only pull up for some people. But this does not indicate Trump +9. This does not indicate Trump +9. Trump +3.7. Like some outlier polls have it as Trump +6, which polling error away, Trump +9. But a lot of post-debate, post-assassination polls do not have it anywhere near Trump +9. So if you're predicting the election for now, I do not see how you can justify it being Trump +9. Like, I think that is your fundamental flaw in your forecast.
Let's go to
use primary data, which makes no sense. You use these polls, which
I barely use primary data. And actually, Biden led by 2 points in primary data in 2020. Now Trump leads by 10, or not 10, excuse me. He leads by 8 points in primary data when you look at the results. And I have all of them pulled up on my screen here. So, yeah. But continue.
So as if, weirdly enough, I think, I might not be correct about this, but it's as if Democrats didn't turn out for a president who has his primary uncontested. And you can say that Dean Phillips put up a threat. He did not put up a decent threat. He got around 3% of the popular vote. So using primary data, since I want to talk about primary data, since I think you use it much more than you let on, using primary data does not make sense because Trump was not uncontested in the primary. He was uncontested later on. And the stream that was the genesis of this debate. You see in this primary data, there is no Trump +10. Trump is losing in Pennsylvania. Trump is losing in Wisconsin when he is uncontested. The only reason
I'm talking about the national
you can
environment.
just say anything.
Talking about the national environment. When you get Trump's 17 million votes and you get Biden's 14.4 million votes, you get Trump winning the primary turnout data by 8 points.
Okay.
That's what I was referring to.
Let me ask you one question. Do you think Democrats crossed over to vote for Nikki Haley?
I think that not as much as people say, but I think it is possible. Yes, I think that is the case.
Okay.
Because
so you are saying that it is logical. You are saying that it is logical that around 80%, maybe even 90%. I'm not pulling up the results right now, but around 80% of the South Carolina electorate is Republican. You are saying that is logical?
Let's look at South Carolina because I actually haven't looked at it in a bit. Okay, so here I'm going to say that this probably was Nikki's actually best state, number one, because she's actually from here. I think maybe most of the Republicans that voted, I think most of the votes she got here are Republicans, but correct me if I'm wrong, the moderators, but I think this was a open primary state. Again, I could be wrong.
It was.
Okay, it was. So
like
that means some of them could have slipped in, but I do believe this is actually the state where she did get the most Republicans.
Okay, so how do you account for the fact that Republican turnout was drastically higher than Democrat turnout in South Carolina? Or drastically more Republicans voted than Democrats than what would be suggested by the state's partisan lead?
My brain just farted. What did you say?
Okay, so I think it was like 120,000 Democrats voted in the South Carolina Democrat primary.
Okay.
And you have the results pulled up right now. I think it was 756,000 people voted. So how do you explain the fact that so many more Republicans voted than Democrats than what the state's partisan lean would suggest. Because this state in 2020 was 55-44.
I'm not saying that it's the primary result is going to equate to the partisan leaning of the actual state. But if this election were even somewhat competitive, like you are mentioning in your predictions, Trump would have not won the national primary data by 8 points. He would probably be leading it by 4 or 5. He probably would have beat Biden in primary turnout by maybe 4 or 5, but he beat him by 8. So clearly,
this election is different because a large amount of voters who are Democrats who would have voted for Biden had they voted in the Democratic primary crossed over to vote for Nikki Haley. And because the Republican primary
I don't believe a lot of them were Democrats, though.
I'm just gonna step in.
How?
Hold on, Tester, hold on. This is supposed to be where we rebuttal. We're already over an hour, and it's been like last time I checked, it was at 54 minutes. So it's been 9 minutes for a 1 minute rebuttal. So
okay, fine.
Tester, let's be a little quick on the rebuttal, and then we'll move on to the next question. I just don't want it to go over time.
30 more seconds. So primary turnout does indicate Republicans are not turning out for Trump. Primary turnout does indicate that the Republican base is depressed. The only reason Trump got a large lead is because Nikki Haley stayed in for enough that about, I think, half of Republicans voted before Nikki Haley dropped out, even maybe more. That is because the only reason Trump got so many votes was because every Republican came out to vote against Nikki Haley. And people who would have voted for Biden turned out for Nikki Haley because Nikki Haley overperformed best in these open primary states. Vermont, South Carolina. She overperformed best in states with open primaries, which has evidence that Democrats crossed over. So I think if this election, Donald Trump were uncontested from the Iowa caucus on, and if all Democrat voters who voted in the Republican primary voted for Biden, honestly, I don't think you would see Trump less than. I think you would see it be nearly dead even. Because in states after Super Tuesday that voted, you saw something like that. Even you saw Biden do better than Trump. Look at Pennsylvania. Look at Wisconsin. So I think wrapping up this argument, turnout is depressed for Republicans. So to say that turnout will be the exact same as 2020 is illogical.
No, I don't think it's going to be the same. I think it's going to be less. But to say that Biden is going to be able to get higher turnout than Trump is not, like in some places, is not going to be realistic either because his approval rating has gone from 52% to 39%. But let's move on to the next question because we did take a while.
Yeah. Okay. So this is from On Point.
Mm-hmm. So
a lot of your data comes from polls due to your 347 electoral vote win for Trump. This is my question. To what extent are polls important in predicting the election for this year? And especially considering the Senate and the House and the governorship, how do you think polls affect it? Just because polls have been inaccurate in the past, and I'm guessing that they're going to be inaccurate now.
Okay, well, first of all, I don't think they're going to be inaccurate against Trump. I think, again, it's obviously not going to be the universal error is going to be the same in every single state because there were states that overestimated Trump in certain places, but the majority of places actually underestimated Trump in state polls anywhere by 2 to 7 points. And a lot of those errors actually came out of places like New York, like Hawaii, like Wisconsin, like Pennsylvania, like Ohio, Iowa. These people had Iowa and Ohio super competitive. Basically Biden was either leading or it was tilt or Trump was leading by a point and he ended up winning by 8. Now those same polls have Trump leading by 10 percentage points and they were also incorrect in 2016. Biden's approval rating is way lower. Trump leads, depending on the website where you look at, Trump leads Biden on approval by 3 to 6 points. And Biden led Trump in the exit polls by 6 points on election day. So Biden actually underperformed his own approval rating spread against Trump in the popular vote. And on top of that, the big difference, I'm going to tell you right now, if this were DeSantis, this would be a way closer race. This would be, if any other Republican was in here, it would be a much closer race because it would be true. If Biden was going against a non-previous incumbent candidate, Biden's incumbency advantage would actually hold up. But because Trump is a pseudo-incumbent who basically won all of the delegates in this year's primary, it is very, very facetious, or at least disingenuous, to even automatically assume that Biden holds an incumbency advantage against Trump because of the fact Trump was a previous candidate. That's why there's not as many undecideds right now as there even was in an election like 2020. In 2020, you had less undecided voters, or more undecided voters than you do right now, because you have the same two options. And even Trump's approval rating now in current polling, when you look at, for example, I believe it was CBS or a YouGov poll, I think they're basically the same thing because they do it together. Trump's approval rating was 41%, but Trump's job recall approval was 51%. Trump is a guy where his approval ratings tend to be differential from his actual job approvals, because there are many people in the electorate, especially now, who see Trump and they're like, okay, I don't really like him, but I'm still going to vote for him because I like the way he ran the country. And that's what happened in 2020. And now that Biden has dropped in approval, you can't really assume that Trump is not going to be you can't assume Trump's going to be overestimated in polling data, because from 2016 to 2020, Trump was at 37%, Biden was at 42% approval. That's a 5-point difference, but third parties took votes away from Clinton. So that there you had a competitive election. It could have gone either way. In 2020, Trump gained 9 points from his favorability. Biden gained 10 points from Clinton's favorability. You saw Biden gained 1 point in net favorability there, because if you do 10 minus 9, so you could have indicated, okay, it's still going to be close, but Biden's definitely the favorite to win. At that point, you could have guessed Nevada, Michigan, Pennsylvania, due to black turnout, wouldn't have been under a point. And you also could have guessed that Wisconsin could have gone blue, because Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania have voted together since 1988. So at that point, the only true toss-ups would have been Arizona and Georgia, which did end up being the case. So to say that Trump now, yes, he's fallen from 46 to 43, 42, but Biden's gone from 52 all the way to 38, 39%. And when Biden led by 6 in the spread in a favorability, it's a close election. Biden's gone from a 6-point lead in favorability down to being 4 to 6 points. That indicates a 10 to 13 point shift, which is within the realm of possibility. Now again, is Virginia 100% confirmed to go to Trump? No. Is New Hampshire 100% confirmed? Definitely not, because the state's trending to the left. It's swung to the left the past few cycles, and even got close in 2016, but it's definitely trending to the left. Same thing for Maine at large, and with ranked choice voting, I would even argue maybe that state even goes Democrat. But overall, I've actually checked a lot of my states and compared it to previous trends and how they would be trending right now. And I don't see any ridiculous trends. The only one you could say maybe is overblown is Hawaii, because right now I have it as an 8-point win for Biden. And the latest poll there is, an 8-point victory and Hawaii. And I know you're going to be like, okay, well, you're saying that polls can be inaccurate. Yes, that's true. But the polls have actually underestimated Trump there twice as well. In 2020, you had Biden up in the aggregate in Hawaii by 35. He only ended up winning by 29 points. So I'm not saying the race is going to be under 5. I really doubt that. But it's definitely going to be under 15, especially with the Maui fires. So yes, polls have been inaccurate, but they've been inaccurate against Trump. And midterms, again, are not the same thing as presidential years. Trump nor Biden are on the ballot those years. And in terms of the Senate, like you mentioned, Red Tie, Donald Trump's going to be able to carry a lot of Republicans to the finish line. Now, the Rust Belt at this point effectively is a toss-up. You could even say that the Democrats probably win there, because you have a lot of Democrats that are very popular, but their victories are not guaranteed. There's a reason why a bunch of Democrats and senators are telling Biden to drop out. There's a reason why Tester and Sherrod Brown are telling Biden to drop out. It's because they know they're going to lose by at least over 5 points each, because Trump is going to be able to carry those Senate Republicans over to the finish line. So that's what I have to say about the polling.
Okay, Tester, you have your rebuttal?
So, I I'm not going to talk about Hawaii because I feel like the state is irrelevant. I feel like getting bogged down in Hawaii would be distracting to this debate. But let's just, make you happy. Hawaii is going to be under aid. It actually is going to flip to Trump. Why don't we say that? But ultimately, I feel like your approval rating, using approval ratings to judge it. The problem is usually presidential elections are defined by the incumbent. People didn't vote for Romney because, I love Obama, but Romney's so much better. People didn't vote for Kerry because they were, they fell in love with Kerry. People voted because they disliked the incumbent or they liked the incumbent. This election is completely different than that. And On Point uses 2008. There was no incumbent in 2008. Like, Bush was a looming idea, but nevertheless, it was still two candidates running for an open seat. This is not the same. Donald Trump is defining this election just as much as Biden. Therefore, his approval rating will define this election just as much as Biden. My opponent also brings up approval rating, talking about Biden's low approval rating. We have seen this. A lot of his low approval rating is from Democrats. Now, these people disapprove of Biden because of Palestine or, he's old, but they have more serious grievances with Trump. That is why to take these approval ratings at face value and compare them each against each other is disingenuous. Like, the vast majority of these people who disapprove of both Biden and Trump will vote for Biden because they disapprove of Biden for small, petty reasons. Now, they can seem big, but when you think that Donald Trump will destroy democracy, that's much, much bigger than he's old. These people will break for Biden. So to compare them one against one, we have not seen this level of polarization in the United States with both candidates think that the other is even. Donald Trump's approval rating is high because all Republicans are on his side. Biden is low because the opposite is not happening. So to compare them one against the other, you might get a crazy result. He has a 10-point shift, not a 10-point win for Trump, a 10-point shift, which would be like a Trump plus 5 popular vote, which would make it so that a lot of these absurd results that he has wouldn't happen. Like New Mexico flipping, Virginia flipping. I don't think those would flip under a Trump plus 5 popular vote. But even with that, even everything I've said, which suggests that comparing the approval ratings one against one wouldn't give you the actual result. On Point's forecast is 4 points for Trump more than that. So it doesn't make sense. The math does not add up here. And On Point, he can bring up polling that still doesn't fit his forecast. He can bring up approval ratings that still doesn't fit his forecast. I was the one who brought up primary results because this was one of the things he used before he was completely debunked on it. So I brought that up. Nothing fits a Trump plus 9 popular vote. That is what this debate is about. On Point Politics will tell you Trump will win the popular vote by 9. There is no evidence for that. There is nothing that says that. Now, we can talk about the crazy state shifts. That is ultimately a symptom of the fact that On Point Politics drastically overestimates how much Trump will win the popular vote by. So, that is what this debate is about. On Point Politics cannot defend that. He will not defend that. He will get us bogged down in irrelevant details like Hawaii, like Virginia. But ultimately, that is what this debate is about. Thank you.
Okay, On Point, would you like to do a really quick response before Goldcron asks probably one of the final questions, just because we're getting near the 90 minutes?
Okay, well, I'm going to just say really quick, by the way. So, just really quick to kind of rebuttal on the whole thing that, Trump plus 9. Again, like I said before, the model isn't going to be exact. It may be Trump plus 7, Trump plus 8, but it's definitely not going to be Trump plus 3 or 2 or 4. It's definitely not going to be those. And we can even go to the polls that were conducted nationally that were all done post-RNC, post-debate, post-assassination attempt, post-VB debate. After you do all of those, you have a Democrat national internal that has 2,400 likely voters that has Trump up 4 points. Morning Consult, which had Biden up right before the debate, the only poll to have Biden up, which is really an outlier poll if you think about it, has Donald Trump up 4 points without third-party candidates, by the way. So he'd probably be leading by a bigger amounts than this. RMG Research has Trump up 5 points on July 15th to the 17th with 27,000 likely voters. And we, SoCal Research and me, have with 800 likely voters. Hold on, sorry, I'm like clicking on stuff by accident. We have Trump up 6 points. So if you were to factor that in, that basically gives Trump a 4 to 5 point lead in the aggregate. And if you were to add third-party candidates, because I don't really use the head-to-head aggregate, I use third-party candidates, because even if let's say yes, because everybody says, oh, well, Kennedy's not on most state ballots, he's not confirmed. So just because somebody gets to the voting booth and they're going to see that Kennedy's not there, they're going to be like, oh, gee, my candidate's not there, so I'm going to just vote for Biden instead. That's not going to happen. There's a reason why they're saying they're going to vote third party. They'll either write in somebody, they'll either vote for another candidate, they'll either just leave the top of the ticket blank. Again, maybe some of them will be like, oh shit, I'll vote for Biden, but most of them probably will not. There's a reason. If you're gonna vote third party, you're gonna be excited about third party, because most of the people will just tell you, oh, it's a throwaway vote. That's what everybody tells everybody, and that's why a third party candidate will never win a general election, which I think is pretty sad. But either way, just to go on with this, with head-to-head polls from post RNC, Trump is up right now by 4.75%. If I were to add third-party candidates, which would add 2 to 3 points to that aggregate, you could say Trump is leading the aggregate by 5 to 7. And if you were to do the error from the RCP from the last cycle, that's a 8 to 10 point victory. So to say that, okay, right now, yes, the RCP aggregate is still factoring in polls pre an assassination attempt, pre-convention, pre-VP pick. So that's why I'm saying that it is more likely for this to occur. And even with the 3.7% aggregate, Trump is still leading by a lot in my model. And it also factors in the approval rating difference as well. Again, I'm not saying 9 points is going to be the final forecast, but it's definitely going to be anywhere between 7 to 10 points, 6 to 10 points above the 5 point margin in the popular vote as of right now.
Okay, Gold Crown, would you like to ask probably one of the final questions, just because we're now at 80 minutes?
Yeah. I have a good closing question for Tester. So my question for you is, do you believe that Biden has really any realistic shot to win this election? Is there any chance that he could possibly win? I think realistically speaking, the only winning path that he kind of has, that at least that the polling would suggest, is that Biden wins through the Rust Belt. If he holds on to, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, he would barely hold on with exactly 270 electoral votes. What are the odds that he could pull something like that off in your view? And also considering Trump's recent VP choice in JD Vance, who is a populist and could potentially help Trump in the Rust Belt, do you see any possible scenario that Biden holds on with the Rust Belt?
Okay, so first of all, talk about the JD Vance pick. We've seen that VP picks usually only help in their home states, so to say that Trump has a bigger chance of winning Ohio is pretty irrelevant. I'd say it gives Trump like a 0.5 boost in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. Could bring up a video I made on this. I will admit that video was bullshit. It was me being very reactionary. But I don't think Vance helps Trump too much there. I think Biden has around a 20% chance of winning. Like, is Trump the favorite? Yes. Is he the heavy favorite? Probably. But there is still a path for Biden. And to say that he has no chance, this is the same overconfidence we had in the 2022 midterms. And we can say that it's different for a presidential election. 90% of the signs we had in 2022 pointed to a Republican wave where we'd be winning Pennsylvania, we'd be winning Nevada. I don't think there was a single sign that pointed to Democrats winning Nevada Senate race. And yet it happened because politics have become so polarized, because there are things that we cannot account for. So I'm not saying my forecast bases on a magical Democrat overperformance, but I am saying that there is a chance that Biden wins because of some factor that we do not know yet. Something could come out. There could be an October surprise. Now, I also want to bring up one more thing, since I am rebutting On Point Politics. I do want to bring up how he mentioned that Trump was up in the RCP, or not RCP aggregate. Trump was up by like 4.75, if I'm not correct, if I'm not mistaken.
If you go to 538 and you
after-
average out the national polls after the RNC, it gives you a 4.7 lead.
Okay, so good story. 2016, Donald Trump. I think he had 2 points where he led. One was in May of 2016, which is kind of irrelevant because that was just statistical noise. But the other was in July of 2016, right after the Republican National Convention. The RNC has artificially boosted Trump's numbers, like every convention every time does. So actually, if you take that, Hillary Clinton ended up winning a popular vote by 2. Trump was up by 1.1 after the RNC. That would mean that the polls right now are overestimating Trump by 3. That's not even factoring in incumbency, which at best is a draw for Trump. At best, the polls will be spot on. So, I just don't see how that's relevant. And you could say that third parties will not mean 7%. Third parties will not change it by 7%. One more thing, and I noticed this across the course of this debate. This is a bit more meta. On Point Politics does not seem to be debating me. He seems to be debating everyone he sees who is skeptical of his predictions. He seems to be debating everyone who doubts his forecast.
But you are doubting my forecast, though. I am responding to you, though.
I never brought up how Kennedy wasn't on the ballot in states. I never made that point.
Well, yeah, I'm just backing up my arguments, though.
You felt the need to debunk that. You see, my opponent has faced these same questions so many times. He gives the same answers. That's why every answer he gives is either, oh, the polls show Trump up, or, oh, I tested my model based on the polls. He gives the same answers. Because ultimately, there very, very few justifications for this. And what he has to do, he has to cherry pick each explanation for it. He's run out of explanations. Like, maybe that's what comes of this debate, that I can say, you can't justify it with primary turnout. Like, the fact that you have to keep saying the same things again and again in your responses is not a good look. Like, you should be able to respond to my individual points rather than responding to everyone who doubts you all at once. Because you're debating me. You put this, you put in the title of your stream, On Point Politics versus Testerisdone. You did not say On Point Politics versus everyone who doubts him. Debate me, because my points, if you didn't gloss over my points by using polls to stitch together your arguments, we could have a much more productive debate. Maybe I could see some logic to your arguments, but there is no logic to your arguments. And deep down, I think even you know that. I think even you know that there is no justification to have Trump winning the popular vote by 9. That's why you say that your forecast might not be accurate, but it'll be the most accurate. You should not be going for most accurate. You should be going for accurate. You should be going to nail the margin on the head, even with like the range of possibilities. Trump plus 6 to Trump plus 10. That's a little. You're not putting your Trump plus 9 popular vote in the middle of that. I see no reason.
Sorry.
Wait, let me.
No, yeah, sorry, just be quick.
I see no reason why you should not be able to defend your forecast. Why you should be hiding behind the fact that your forecast has a large margin of error. I don't see a reason for that. That's all.
Okay. Since we're like 5 minutes away from ending, I'm gonna ask my final question.
Okay.
And this is like basically an overall question, not towards anybody specific, but more towards On Point than anybody. So On Point, why do you believe that your methodology and the way that you use your data, is superior to your opponent, Testerisdone? And how can you back it up? And I want you to be creative with it and not using polls to use your answer. I want you to be creative with your answer.
First of all, that's very disingenuous that you don't want me to use polls because
Because they're going to be wrong.
What do you mean? Because they're going to be wrong. That's
Polls
kind of we've been using the polls this like entire video, so I don't understand why now I can't use them. But either way, that's fine. But what I'll say now is the reason why I think I'm going to be more accurate is because I've looked at other metrics besides polls polls just happen to be a part of the model. But I've looked at the approval ratings. We've looked at historical modeling for the different elections. So in 2016, the same model produced Biden winning by 334 to 204. Clinton was actually the only election that I got wrong. I had Hillary Clinton winning 308. When you tested back, the 2012 model was actually pretty spot on as well. And in 2008, I got 2 states wrong. 2004, some of the margins were a bit iffy, but George W. Bush was still the winner. I had him with 308. He ended up getting 284. So that's why I'm saying it's not going to be a picture perfect model, because that would be pretty disingenuous for me to say right now, oh, it's going to be within a point or two. I can obviously say that there is going to be some margin of error, which literally, by the way, every single pollster has a 3 to 4 point error. So that's kind of the thing as well. So really, to say that I'm being facetious and that I don't have any logic in my arguments and that I'm hiding behind my model, I'm actually not hiding behind my model. I'm actually saying the opposite, that there is room for me to be inaccurate in some ways. But to say that my model is going to be off by 6-7 points, I think is pretty facetious, considering especially the fact that Trump has been underestimated twice in this model as well. So that's what I have to say.
Okay, alright, Tester, it's basically the same question. Why do you believe your model is superior to On-Point Politics?
Simply because I do not rely on polls. Like, I don't want to be that guy who says fundamentals are the most important part of this election, but the United States is so polarized. There is so much hatred for Donald Trump that there is no chance of a landslide. Now, I'll take a short tangent to bring up what On Point Politics said. He said that I'm criticizing him for having a margin of error. The margin of error in polls are 3 points each way when they're 3 points. They're not, 4 points one way and then 1 point the other way. All it shows is that he has a large amount of, I don't know what the opposite of confidence is. He has a small amount of confidence in his prediction. Especially, he admits that he is much more likely to overestimate Donald Trump than underestimate Donald
That's
Trump.
not what I said. I've underestimated Trump twice in my models. So if anything, I could possibly be underestimating him because I've tested back the models all the way back. I just mentioned. Let
me speak. This is my turn to speak. You have him at a +9 popular vote. Why, at best, does he get +10? If you're underestimating him by that much, why, at best, did you say he gets a +10 popular vote? And why, at worst, does he get a +6? That's a much, much higher margin of error in favor of Biden than in favor of Trump. There's no reason for that other than you know that your model is wrong.
I don't believe my model's going to be... I don't think my model would be that inaccurate. If Trump right now, with the latest polls post-RNC convention, he leads by 4.7%, and you apply a margin of error of, let's say, 3 points, which would be the highest possible standard error, that's 7.5 points. And with third parties, it could be a 7 to 10 point victory in the national popular vote. So that's all I have to say.
Okay. Any final comments?
You're basing your forecast on third parties somehow taking 3 points away from Biden, which, there's no evidence for that. You're guessing that they'll take 3 points away from Biden.
I'm not guessing. That's historically what's being shown in the aggregate. It's not recently that the aggregates have started getting closer. So, but that's all I have to say.
Is there any final comments? Gold Crown?
Well, I will say that this debate should be an easy win for me, because the good thing is neither one of us believed On Point Politics' forecast. So that's all I'll say.
Okay. Gold Crown, any final comments before I...
I think that's pretty good. I have all the questions that I wanted to ask.
Okay. All right, sweet. Thank you both. Thank you, Gold Crown, for also moderating as well.
I'm sending the post debate poll into the into the thing now. So I'm gonna send it to the debate chat, and I'm gonna post it in mine, and I'm gonna let it go for 15 minutes because that's how long we let it go for pre-debate, just to give the same time frame, and that'll basically be it. So.
Okay. All right.
And then all announced.
I just want to say.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yes. No. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Star. I just want to point out, thank you, Star, for some of the questions that you sent me. I just want to point that out because he asked me to give him credit for some of the questions that he asked me to ask you. Thank you, Tester, as well. Thank you, On Point. Thank you, Gold Crown. This was a very interesting debate. But yeah.
All right. All right. Good job, Tester. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity for this. I would like to say, and I think we're still live, that I have a massive amount of respect for On Point Politics, and disagreements about some numbers will not affect that. The ability to put yourself out on YouTube in the way that he does is something that I think everyone should respect him for. So, yeah. Thank you for this opportunity.
I agree 100%. Like, it's not like that I hate On Point as a person. I don't, like, yeah, we disagree with some models, but, like, we're all a part of one party. We should be, like, united. That's what I'm gonna say.
Okay.
Right, good closing statement.
Alright, cool.
I'm going to go ahead and let the poll go for, like, 15 minutes because that's how long we let it go for before. So at 7:45, I don't know if you guys are gonna stay on the air now, but I'm letting this go until 7:40.
Well, I'm probably gonna end my stream because I have to get ready for the a post debate that me and Tesla are doing.
Okay.
So.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys want to go ahead and do that?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. Let me. I'll just do it here.
By the way,
you guys. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I have the Tester. I have the same settings. I have limit to 1 response. So.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you guys for watching this live. I will be I'll be on the post debate with Tester talking about what happened for anybody who possibly didn't watch it or something around those lines. Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to my videos. Subscribe to On Point. Subscribe to Tester. Subscribe to Gold Crown. And I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I guess before I go, one more time, thank you for this opportunity. I do think it was brave of you to allow someone to go onto your channel and debate you. I don't especially LT, when you challenged him to the debate, he would never do that. And that's why I think, I honestly, after this debate, I can say that I don't think you're, people say that you're the Republican LT. I don't think that's true. But, yeah, I think that ultimately, these 2-3 weeks or so that we've been planning this debate, my opinion of you has grown massively. You are a good person. You're a good YouTuber. And while we disagree on predictions, I do appreciate that you are able to defend your predictions, especially in front of all these people live. So I'm gonna go to my post-debate stream.
Okay, cool.
But yeah. Thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah.
No, of course.
Tester, send me the link to the StreamYard that you're gonna join. Okay.
I'm not. Wait. Oh, okay. All right. Gold Crown. Let's switch over to the Discord server. Hold on, guys. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna go ahead and switch.
I think that you used more. Your argument was more based in, numbers and objective sort of metrics, and his was kind of more like what he thinks is gonna happen. It was a little more subjective, and I think that, you know, he did perform better than I expected, but I just feel like, and I feel like when like he brought up some of the like points of like, oh, like even he can't even on point can even trust his own model, like nothing proves his point, like not even the polls, not the approval ratings. That's not true, because like literally if you properly interpret the approval rating, for example, it's like, it's true, the past 3 incumbents have gotten an approval that is very, very similar to national vote share, and you know, third parties aren't going to get much more than 10% if they even do, and if they get less, that would boost Trump by even more. So it's like, I think, I don't know, I feel like you know, I'm glad that you guys kind of respected each other at the end there. That was good. That was a good way to kind of leave it off, and I'm glad that you know, he respects you for debating him and everything. That was a good way to end it.
No, yeah, I mean, yeah, that was a good way to end it. I think he did get very facetious at the end, though, when he was like, "Oh, you can't trust your model. You can't, like, you don't even believe yourself." I think that was a little, I don't know. I think that was kind of a bad move, but you know, it is what it is. I mean, he was trying to get the meta high ground on me in terms of his predictions and whatnot, but I don't think he realizes that this was a numbers debate and not a meta debate. So I mean, we'll see what happens. The survey's going right now. Obviously, I'm going to be posting the results at 7:45. I have it limited to 1 respondent, the same settings as last time. And the previous survey, the pre-debate survey, had Tester winning at 48.1%, to me at 44.4%, and 7.4% of respondents were undecided. So that's basically what I have. That's what the pre-debate poll, and I'm not going to be revealing any of the results until 7:45. So you guys want to figure out what that happens. That's basically what we do. And the way we're basically determining the winner is the net swing of the post poll. So if Tester gains in the post poll, he would win the debate. If I gain, I would win the debate. So even if the poll shifts 0.1% in my favor, I would win. And if the poll shifts 0.1% in his favor, he would also win as well. So that's basically what we're kind of looking at as of right now, pretty much. That's basically it. So that's kind of the way we're judging the debate. So, but no, yeah, I mean, I think he's probably, again, you know, Minnesota, Virginia, they're not guaranteed to go to Trump, but I think he is the favorite there because the polls have shifted heavily in his favor since the beginning. I don't know why he tried using the whole push poll thing against me. That was kind of dumb too, because my whole argument with the push poll stuff is that they were trying to make Harris look like the better Democrat nominee, but that doesn't mean that, you know, oh wait, why do I have it there? Hold on. Hold on. Wait a minute. I need to fix my OBS. I don't know why it's on that screen. Hold on. Because it like shows the survey questions, even though that's not what's on my screen. Okay, there we go. That's what's on my screen. So overall, I mean, I think I started out pretty strong. At some point at the end there, things are getting a little iffy, but I think overall I performed pretty well for the most part. I think I did good, and I think I got my points across. I don't know why he was claiming that I wasn't getting my points across at all. I think that was kind of disingenuous, to be honest.
Yeah, I think he did pretty well in terms of like viewer perception. Like he's like, oh, you don't even trust your model. You don't like, nothing proves it. And I feel like you could have stepped in with like a really strong rebuttal, like, you know, I think you could have had like a one hit liner, like, you know, say this, and it just completely dissolves everything that he's saying. Yeah, I think you know, I mean, he did well. I feel like he was, you know, to win an argument that is, or to win a debate that is with less like metrics and numbers based, you have to use like sort of either an emotional response or a perception response for the audience. Like, you're like, oh yeah, well he sounds like he's more accurate, so I'm gonna think he's better. But I'm someone definitely who thinks that objective things that you measure is the ultimate. Like, you can't really win something based upon an emotional response or an emotional argument. I think that he's kind of relying on more sort of conventional wisdom, and I've talked about this. Like, people think, oh well, there's no way that Trump could possibly win in a landslide. The electorate's too competitive. I remember him saying that the undecided will break for Biden down the stretch of the final months, and but there's no indication of that, because like, and plus, even if they do, I think so in RCP, like the total candidates get up to like low to mid 90s in the total percent. So like, if you distribute like the undecideds, then Trump would actually gain a little bit. But even if you give the rest of the undecideds to Biden, it doesn't boost him by any considerable amount whatsoever. So it's like, even if that happens, it wouldn't really change much at all. And so I'm kind of wondering because I know that you guys were kind of debating back and forth of like, oh well, I have this at the election right now, versus he's sort of like projecting ahead, and you're sort of saying, well, this is what is at right now, and there was kind of a little confusion with that. But yeah, I think it's I feel like I might be a little biased perhaps, but I definitely think that in terms of the just objective metrics that are irrefutable, if they're properly analyzed, he didn't really give any argument when it came to numbers, and because that's the only authority that people can mutually agree upon. I mean, if you go on a tangent about like, oh well, I think this is going to happen, or I think that Biden will. He said that Biden would outperform the polls, or just like perform with them, which I think is really interesting, because Trump has been underestimated massively both times, and he said that it was the incumbent typically gets what was it like, or the whatever he said, it was like the incumbent gets underestimated or something like that. But I don't think that's going to happen, just because Trump has been like, all the data indicates that that's not happening. But yeah, I mean, I think it's I wish that he used more numbers, like I said, just because it was at that point, if it's not numbers, then it's like feelings, like I think this is going to happen, or I think that I think undecideds will break for Biden. Where's the proof for that? There is no proof. It could happen, but will it happen? Is there any objective measure that you can use to prove that will happen? I don't think that he did well with that. But I did think that he did pretty well with like the perception of it. But we'll see the results soon.
Yeah, we'll see the results. The results are going to drop in just about 3 minutes or so. 55 responses, so definitely double the responses from the last survey. So definitely people who tuned in. There's a decent amount of the electorate here that did tune in, basically after the pre-survey. So there's a lot of people that tuned in after the pre-survey survey. So you're definitely going to be able to see, where a lot of the new viewers basically broke overall. We're definitely going to be able to see that for sure. So someone said, am I sick? Yes, I am actually sick. So yes, I did do this debate sick. I think On Point won the debate. He used facts and poked holes at his opponent's defense. He got heated, sure, but it's normal. It seems like Tester was personally attacking him. Yeah, I definitely think he messed up at the end when he did that there. I think if he hadn't done that, it would give him a better shot in terms of giving the electorate a better impression. But I think he kind of messed up when he did that. That's just my opinion, though. Results come out in about 2 minutes. And it says, a lot of people were saying that the other moderators seemed to be biased against me. I mean, he was decent, but there were at times where he was saying some things where it was kind of like he's saying I can't use polling in my answer, even though we were using polling the whole time. So that was pretty interesting. But overall, I mean, who have I voted for? I can't vote in the poll. I didn't vote in my poll. That wouldn't be fair. James said, I think Tester using no numbers messed him up. Owen Haley obviously says Tester won. Debates aren't supposed to be insults, but instead off of based. He was trying to say that, you know, I was using. I can't. I was hiding behind my model or whatever, but. And when are we? Let's see here. Hold on. All right, guys, that's it. So, hold on. All right, that's it, guys. So, the results will now be posted in chat. Gold crown.
Yeah.
Okay. So, it's official. I won.
Oh, really? I'm not seeing it. Where is it?
In chat.
Hold on.
No, and I typed it in chat, but now I'm going to actually take a screenshot of the actual results.
Yeah, just take a screenshot. I don't see it.
Yeah.
I'm clicking on it. It's not working. Oh, here. Okay, here it is. Yeah. Yeah, 60-40.
Tester said GG. Oh, Owen saying rigged. Poland ball rigged. Okay. Well, yep, guys. It's official. I won. No, Omar, I didn't post it in my own chat only. I let them post it in their own chat too. That's why I did it in a Google form. Oh my god. Okay, so in the pre-debate survey, 27 people voted, and this one, 62 people voted. So there was about like 40-something people that were brand new, more than likely, to the survey. So Tester did gain votes in it. He got 12 more votes than he did in the pre-survey. So it's not like I got all the undecideds, but I definitely won. And I'll actually just even pull it up here, because I shared it, and he was also allowed to post it in his chat too. Like, he had his own stream going on as well, so that's why he had his own stream going on too. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull it up here so you guys could see it, because I know I didn't show it on my screen, but I'll pull up both. So the pre-debate, survey, which I put unsure because I knew some people on his end maybe didn't know me, some people on my end didn't know who he was, so I put unsure there, and then it showed 27 respondents. He was at 48.1%. I was at 44.4%. I was like a vote behind him. I was basically tied. We were basically going to be tied, and unsure was like 7%, basically. Oh my god, Tester is saying recount. Okay.
Yeah, they're all asking. They're all asking for a recount.
They're all asking for a recount. And then when we go to the post-debate poll, we have me at 59.7% and Tester is at 40.3%. He did net votes, so for those who want to say it was rigged, not really. He's in my chat saying it was a fun debate, GG. He's probably joking around. But yep, that's basically it. Alright guys, well, that's pretty much it. So if you guys won, if you guys did enjoy this, please make sure. We had 3.5k viewers tune in. That's pretty impressive. So that's pretty cool, actually. That probably helped him out a bit too. Let's actually see how many subs he has. I know he had like 116. He gained a few. He's at 122 now. So that gained him a few people. He has not started his post debate. Oh, it starts in a couple minutes. All right, well, all right, guys, that's pretty much it. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you want more content just like this, and I will see you guys in the next video.